Oh, howdy all. Grab yourself a beer. It's time for some Path of Exile discussion. So the Expedition League has been going for a few weeks now, and if there's one thing that there's no shortage of in Expedition, it is opportunities to loot fractured items. Whenever you do an Expedition encounter in a map, or especially in a logbook, you will have opportunities to detonate remnants that have 35% chances for certain things, whether that be unearthing a chest or destroying a runic monster, to grant you a fractured item. These add up, and ultimately, it's not uncommon to walk away from an expedition encounter with 6, 7, 8 fractured items. So what I want to do is look at the fractured items that are worth your time picking up and the ones that you can safely ignore. First thing I do want to say is that I disagree with a lot of the other content creators who have been discussing these. The most common perception that other people have been saying is that fractured items are not worth ever taking. I think this is wrong. I want to go through why. I want to talk about the ones that are worth your while. But I do want to say one thing that's important. The vast majority of the time that you identify a fractured item, you are going to be disappointed. You are doing this, you are identifying these not for the average result. You're doing it for the top 1 to 2% of results. However, that top 1 to 2% is so good that there'll actually be some serious value in it. So those of you that are familiar with stacked decks will know this principle. If you open 50,000 stacked decks, and there's a few people that have done this, you'll find that something like 1/3 of the value of all of those stacked decks comes from the, on average, about 5 of them that give you a doctor or a better card. A further third of them come from the ones that give you an Exalt and up card. But this is only a tiny number of the cards. And then the vast majority of the cards give you basically nothing in value. That's the same with fractured items. You will find that overwhelmingly they're worth nothing, but the average is actually higher than people give it credit for. For example, if you identify an item level 86 plus bow and you leave it on the ground if it is not of the many, as its locked suffix, then you will on average make an Exalt shard every time that you do that. That's because the times that you do hit that sort of 1 in 1,000 shot, you get such a big payoff that it's worth it. So fractured items recap for those of you that aren't familiar with them. They have one item on them, the one mod on them that cannot change. They're immune to divine orbs, chaos orbs, annulment orbs, and the like. If you hit this item with a scouring orb, it will become a magic item that still has the fractured mod. This makes them incredibly powerful for crafting tools if that one mod is good, and especially if that one mod is rare. But not all slots are equal, item slots that is, and not all fractured items are equal. Fractured items cannot have or gain influence, and this opportunity slot cost is different in different item slots. So I wanted to start with an example of a solid but unspectacular fractured item. This is a real item that someone has up for trade in the Expedition League. This Glyph Visage Ursine Pelt, and it is an item level 84 Ursine Pelt, so a pure evasion armor with 48% to fire resistance, and reasonably good other mods on it. This is listed for 10 chaos. It's a useful item, it's not valuable. The reason this is useful is that it's got 48% locked on resist. No matter what you do to this, it's always going to have that top tier resist on it. This is the sort of thing that would be really good if you're playing in solo self-found and trying to get your resist sorted early in the league, or if you're playing a build that is just really tight on resist. You could hit this with a essence that guarantees a different resist, and you could wind up with a really good setup that covers a lot of your resists in one slot. That said, this is not really going to ever be made into an endgame item. That's not, or certainly not a top-end endgame item. An example of a 40 Exalt fractured item. This is a good base. This has a very rare locked mod. So the of many mod is weight 100, and it is an uber powerful locked mod. This is the single best mod that bows can roll, and it is locked on. This item is a real item that's being traded in the current league for 42 Exalts. And I expect this will sell. You know, maybe it'll sell at 42, maybe they'll get undercut by someone else selling the same thing at 41, and then they'll decide to sell it at 39 or 40, but it will sell for something in the 40 Exalt range. And that'd be the same if this was a rare item, you know, and just had rubbish other mods in it as well. And here's an example of a middle tier item. This has a good base and a good mod, but it's a common one that's easy to roll. The explicits add no value. This is a crafting base only. So you can basically think of this as a thicket bow, item level 81, with +2 to the level of socketed bow gems locked on. That's a pretty common mod to roll, but it's very good for a lot of builds, And so this is something that a number of players would potentially use without being something that people go gaga over, because it's just not that rare to get this mod. So what slots should you pick up? Firstly, let's talk about the ones you shouldn't. Gloves, boots, torso, amulet, ring, shield, quiver. In these slots, fractured items just cannot compete with influenced items. So you can safely remove fractured versions of all of these from your loot filter at all item levels. Possible exception is shields and quivers, but I think shields in particular you can safely remove. But I'll leave that up to you. But I have none of these on my loot filter normally. And just removing all of these will deal with the whole fractured items are too much effort issue. So once you've removed all of these, you just won't see all that many fractured items. It's not going to be a lot of time that you're spending dealing with them. You're only going to be picking up the ones that you think have some potential. Secondly, let's talk about the other bad slot, and that's the helmet. Here, there is exactly one solid outcome, and that is an item level 86 plus helmet that has locked on +3 to socketed minion gems. This isn't that rare a roll, and so it's actually about 1 in 100 fractured helmets that are item level 86 that will have this mod on them. It's really niche though, and it won't be used in any godly gear crafts because they will want usually Elder Influence. If you're doing some sort of minion shenanigans in your helmet, usually you want Elder Influence so that you can roll the really powerful Elder Influence minion mods there as well. So don't expect over a couple of Exalts if you do hit this. This is going to be someone's stepping stone gear. Someone is going to buy this from you for an Exalt or 2 or 3. They're going to spend a small amount crafting it. They're going to make something that's really good for a little while, but it is something they're expecting to grow out of. Because it's the only Helm mod that I think is really good, you can safely remove item level 85 and down fractured helmets from your loot filter, but maybe keep the 86 plus ones for the 1% chance of hitting this 2 to 3 Exalt drop. So, weapons, wands specifically. This is where we start getting good. We're going to talk about weapons for the rest of this video because weapons are where the money is at. So there are a lot of good hits that you can get on wands, although all of them are rare. So you should expect that you're going to be picking up a lot of wands. You might go 50 in a row where every single fractured wand that you loot goes straight to the vendor. Then the 51st one might be one that you turn around and sell for 7 Exalts. Then the 52nd through 113th might all be rubbish. And then the 114th might be one that you turn around and sell for 25 Exalts. So the best mod you can get is Magisters. This is +1 to the level of all spell skills. And it's 35 Exalts if it's on a good base. It's 15 if it's on a mediocre base. And so this is the god tier result that you can get. This is what you're really hoping for. Magisters is super rare. It has a weighting of 50, so you shouldn't expect to see this, but it is a lottery that's worth shooting for. It's worth identifying items just on the extreme off chance that you hit that. But then additionally, there's a bunch of other options you can hit that are fairly valuable and that are good crafting tools as well. So +1 to the level of all of a single element of spell skills. So for instance, +1 to the level of all fire spell skills. If the item is item level 55 or higher, then this can also roll Magisters on it. And so for that reason, these can be really, really good. They're currently undervalued by the trade market, and I think that these are a bit of a crafter's dream to trade for from other people, play around with them, craft them, and then look to sell them at resale, profitable resale. There's other possibilities too. You could get tier 1 attack mods, and we'll come to attack weapons later. You could get tier 2 versions of some of the rare mods. You could get something like Runic or Glyphic. These are the top tier caster damage mods. Or you could get a single element version of Runic or Glyphic as well. So take all of the rare tier 1 and tier 2 mods seriously if they're locked. If you get a Runic wand, if you get a crystallizing wand, these are things that will probably have some value to them. If that's the locked mod on it, you should be able to do something with that. Either you can use that yourself or sell it. There's lots of options there. Or you could craft it and then look to sell it. But those are all things that are good. That said, the vast majority of the time, you're just going to identify it and go, tier 5 fire resistance again, vendor. Next up is Rune Daggers. And here, it's just like the last slide, really, except that you can't get attack mods. And here's a good example of something that's being sold for 3 Exalts that I think is a solid price at 3x, maybe even a little bit cheap. +1 to the level of all lightning spell skill gems, and it's got 70% increased spell damage. Very easy to roll 70% increased spell damage, or very easy to roll 94% increased crit strike chance for spells. All you need to do to roll one of those is use an essence. Rolling both of them at the same time is a little bit harder. That's going to take a bit of luck. And undoubtedly what's happened here is that the owner of Plague Fang has had this item drop, and then they've hit it with various crafting methods a few times until they've got something that was good, that made an overall good package with good spell damage, good crit strike chance, and the lightning spell skill gems level. And they've gone, all right, this is a good overall package. This is something that's too good to roll over. I'm going to try and sell it for 3x as it is. Next up is bows. So the god tier roll here is of the many. This is only available on item level 86 plus, so only from very high level logbooks, and it is +2 arrows. This is 40 exalts or more on a great base, 10 to 20 on a lesser one. But there's also a lot of other possibilities you can hit as well, many top tier attack mods. You could hit Merciless, like this bow here, this Oblivion Wind bow that I'm showing here. You could hit Tyrannical, which is a tier 2 version of Merciless. You hit Flaring, which is flat physical damage. In fact, this Oblivion Wind has it as a normal explicit, 42 to 77 fizz damage. You could hit Dictators, you could hit Carbonizing, Crystallizing, Vaporizing. So Dictators is the hybrid attack damage percentage and accuracy, physical damage percentage and accuracy. Carbonizing is tier 1 fire damage to attacks. Crystallizing and Vaporizing are cold and lightning. But there's also a lot of second tier attack mods, Celebration, which is tier 1 attack speed, all sorts of things like that. Ultimately, if you get something that's got a great starting point, like Oblivion Wind's Merciless mod here, you can either decide to sell it to an experienced crafter who can do a lot of powerful stuff with the bow, or you can craft it further yourself. What the owner of Oblivion Wind has done is they have then presumably used a combination of fossils in order to get flaring on this bow, and then they've used an Ashling Slam, and they've gotten lucky and hit something that's, you know, a good overall package on this bow. In fact, they've got 51% increased physical damage as well. They've probably used a lot of jagged fossils to hit that. Then they've locked the prefixes once the prefixes are so good they're not going to get better, and then they've used an Ashling Slam to finish it off. Really, really, really strong item, and there's a lot of potential to make things like that in the current league. Next up is Caster Staves, and here there are 4 mods to look for, all of them very rare. +3 to a single element of spells, +2 to all spells, runic or glyphic. But also anything that you see in general attack weapons is worth a thought, because these Caster Staves can roll attack mods as well. And you might just sort of accidentally wind up with something that's got a bunch of good attack mods and someone's playing a staff build somewhere. Or also you can look for various other caster mods like Glyphic or Runic, although they tend to be better on one-handed weapons. And lastly, there's general attack weapons. Here, any of the following mods are bonkers. Merciless, Flaring, Tyrannical, Dictators, and also even 1 tier lower of each of them. So if you get Emperors, if you get 1 tier below Flaring, whatever that's called. And also any of the following are great. Tier 1 element damage, any type, tier 1 attack speed, or tier 2 of anything that we listed above. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense as to what to look for when it comes to fractured items. They are a lottery, but they're a lottery that's a bit better than a lot of people give them credit for. And I think that any trade league player should definitely be at least going for the various fractured item remnants when they come up. Maybe not as high a priority as going after the things that give you 50% more logbook drops. But other than that, I think they're one of the better mods, and they can definitely help turbocharge the loot that you're getting. Just a quick pointer on the item levels that these become really good at. Attack weapons tend to be really good when they're item level 83 or up. Spellcaster ones only need to be 55 and up, because then they can roll Magisters. And bows need to be 86 to be uber. If you've got comments or questions, fire away below. Otherwise, may your Varlorbs have interesting results, but I don't suggest using them on fractured items because they tend to disappoint there.